What is up, guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to name the top 10 matches between the WWE 4 Horsewomen. Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks and Bayley have had one of the greatest women's matches I've ever seen, and not to mention it's always been between them. They have great chemistry between them, and every time they have a match between each other, whether it's one-on-one, a triple threat match, or even a fatal 4-way, I know it's going to be a fantastic matchup. And before we get started on the video, I just want to say that these matches will not include other female wrestlers. It's going to be a countdown between these 4 women, whether it's on a pay-per-view, Raw, SmackDown, or even NXT matches will be included. And there are matches I will not include but have honorable mentions in the description below, so let's get started right on the video. This is one of my favorite NXT TakeOver matches, and this was the very first time these 4 went against each other. You got Becky Lynch, who became the most popular wrestlers out of all of these women, Bayley, who became the first ever Women's Grand Slam champion, Charlotte Flair, who became a record 13-time Women's champion, and Sasha Banks, who became the most Raw Women's Championship reigns ever. But this match comes in number 10 because they were just starting out and they weren't as good as they are right now. But this match sure did deliver. This match helped prove that these women were more than worthy of carrying the women's revolution. But I'm gonna be real with you, I do not know how I feel about NXT Charlotte Flair. She looks nothing like how she looks right now. Regardless of that, I enjoy the way they all stood up against one another and how good the match was. It definitely needs more recognition. Okay, I'll be completely honest with you right here. I did not like how the match ended at all. I really expected that if the match was not going to end with a pinfall, submission, or knockout, it was going to end with maybe a counter. But the first goal of this match was really incredible. Sasha Banks was good, but Becky Lynch practically owned 65% of this matchup maybe. I honestly got chills everywhere every time I watched the fight. The build-up was amazing. It was one of Becky Lynch's greatest Raw Women's title defenses. After seeing Sasha Banks tap out to the disarmer in front of the crowd reflects how she used the bank statement to Charlotte in front of the crowd back in 2016. Watching Sasha Banks battle Becky and lose via disqualification made me think that maybe Sasha Banks wasn't as quick out to be when everything was said and done. After the match ended, I was hoping for a rematch at Hell in a Cell, and we'll talk about that later in the video. This match was the first ever women's Hell in a Cell match. Charlotte Flair was at the limit of her fullest potential and Sasha Banks is completely helpless. The part where everything went south well for Sasha was that brutal powerbomb through the announce table. At first it seemed that Sasha was forfeiting her women's championship because she was hurt, but Sasha Banks is not a quitter. Hell in a Cell is one of the most brutal and physically demanding WWE stipulations. You can't go in there not knowing that you're 100% because you will be demolished. It's going to be like Undertaker vs Ricochet. It's going to be a squash match. But Sasha Banks had different thoughts in mind when it came to that. Charlotte Flair fights like with underwhelming confidence and says a lot. One of the things that I like about this match is how brutal and how it represents the brutality the stipulation has. Sasha Banks was not okay and everybody could see that, but she still continues to fight to become a fighting champion. Too bad she lost though, but this match was an amazing match. I found it impressive that Sasha Banks could even fight out of that powerbomb. This is a match really worth remembering. Charlotte Flair was all over the Raw Women's division in 2016 and 2017. She was too cocky and had this high expectation of who she should be. Too bad that she lost though, because almost every week she was being humiliated and embarrassed by Sasha Banks and Bayley. This match is one of my favorite Raw matches. It really highlights how good and valuable Bayley and Charlotte Flair were at the time for the Raw Women's division. Obviously, Charlotte Flair needed backup because, she's the queen. Anyways, Dana Brooke was on Charlotte Flair's side while Bayley had no one. Charlotte Flair applied her figure 8 and soon as Bayley was gonna tap out, boom! Here comes Sasha Banks with catches and attacks the nipple from behind, and while the referee isn't looking, she hits Charlotte Flair on the throat and Bayley does the Bayley to belly and wins the Raw Women's Championship. It was an absolutely amazing matchup and I never get bored of it. Hell in a Cell is known for many things and its brutality is definitely one of them. Sasha Banks competed in her third ever women's Hell in a Cell match against her former best friend Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Bayley and Sasha Banks already had an unstoppable relationship. This rivalry is one that has been awaited for years now ever since their classic battle at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn back in 2015, but WWE couldn't pick up the plug. After Bayley and Sasha Banks lost their tag team titles back at Payback, they earned an automatic rematch the following SmackDown, but they lost again. again after Shayna and Nia absolutely destroyed them. But the moment that followed absolutely shocked everyone in the WWE universe. Bayley attacked Sasha Banks. We couldn't get over the fact that the Golden Role Models were no more. I always thought that it would be Sasha Banks turning on Bayley, but it was the other way around. Sasha Banks absolutely destroyed Bayley and challenged her for the SmackDown Women's Championship 2 weeks later, but obviously Bayley cheated to retain. After that, Sasha Banks challenged Bayley at Hell in a Cell where there would be no disqualifications and everything would be legal. The match was physical and the fact that they used everything around them made me love it even more, and the result was truly epic. Sasha Banks made Bayley tap out and came out victorious. We are now entering the best of the best. I don't even know where to start here. This match was absolutely incredible, and I think everybody can agree with me. Now, I know we're supposed to be talking about the match itself, but I can't stand how amazing and phenomenal Sasha Banks' entrance was. And when the confetti blew up, it was just the icing on the cake. And now let's talk about the match itself. It was arguably the most over-delivered match of the night. The moonsault Charlotte Flair did after the top turnbuckle was the most noticeable part of the matchup, and the slow motion replay made it even better. And when Becky Lynch delivered the suicide dive to Ric Flair was very hilarious. Even though Charlotte Flair cheated to win, it was fantastic to see these two women deliver at the greatest stance of them all. But if Ric Flair didn't interfere at the end of the match, I really think that Sasha Banks would have won. But again, this match was fantastic and deserved to be in the top 5. Another Sasha Banks vs Charlotte Flair classic match happened on Raw. Ever since the beginning of the Women's Revolution back in 2015, fans often wondered if we will ever see another women's match main eventing Monday Night Raw. Well, in 2016, Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks did exactly that in a 4 count anywhere match for the Raw Women's Championship. That was one of the highlights of that year. They both gave it all they got. They put their bodies on the line in one of the most impressive ways I've ever seen. Towards the end of the match, Charlotte and Sasha brawled in front of the audience, which led to an extraordinary ending. The final icing on the cake was the Banks statement in front of the crowd, which I mentioned earlier in the video. Ric Flair coming in at the end of the match and raising Sasha Banks' hand was a moment and made the match even more memorable. The NXT TAKEOVER Women's match between Bayley and Sasha Banks was an instant classic for the action and storytelling amongst it. In the first installment of NXT Brooklyn, the two proved to have amazing chemistry whenever facing each other one-on-one. I enjoyed their wrestling matches. The build-up for this fight was really entertaining to watch. The bump these two got was so respectable for women's wrestling back then. The match was lasted for about 22 minutes or so in length. I enjoyed the way Bayley stood up to Sasha Banks when she was literally being bullied. It illustrates how much of a threat Bayley could actually be to Sasha Banks' championship. Sasha Banks didn't care though. She continued patronizing Bayley in order to try to literally break the hopes and spirit of the NXT universe. Unfortunately for her, Bayley prevailed and won the prestigious NXT Women's Championship. This match was one of the best matches of 2015. I don't care what anyone says. This match was really incredible to watch. It really was. And now we're at number 2 of the list, and Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks destroyed the absolute hell out of each other in one of the most brutal Hell in a Cell matches I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them. The man proved that she is no longer the girl that was hesitant of doing brutal things, and heel Sasha Banks is the best Sasha Banks ever. She is more brutal in the ring, she absolutely destroys on the microphones, and she doesn't care about what anybody thinks of her character, and all of those near pinfalls made me think so highly of their rivalry. This match has some great moments like that meteor to the ladder, or that chest shot, or even when Becky Lynch slammed the cage door to Sasha Banks at the beginning of the match. Oh my god, but the moment that gave me goosebumps was the dropkick off the edge of the apron delivered to Sasha Banks was so impactful. I was so shocked when Sasha Banks kicked out of that, and that black spoiler Becky Lynch delivered to Sasha Banks at the end of the match was literally something else. And she put the disarmor. There was a great match and such a terrific match and an amazing feud and match. But I have other ones that tops all of them. I loved Sasha Banks vs Becky Lynch at Hell in a Cell, but I think everybody knows that I respect the hell out of this legendary matchup between Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch at Evolution, and I think we all know that this is my favorite women's match ever. The rivalry the two had in 2018 lived up to its hype and build-up. The last women's standing match stipulation added more fire to the match and made the match and more interesting. If this match didn't happen at the first ever all-women's pay-per-view, I highly doubt that Evolution would have been as memorable as it was. These two women gave gave it all they got. Everyone was on Becky Lynch's side, well, except for the women's side and ringside. Anyways, and that leg drop Becky Lynch delivered to the announce table. Oh my god, I could watch this matchup all year if I could. This matchup was truly the definition of perfection, and it eclipsed all of the 4 Horsewomen matches. There are so many more matches I wish I could add to the video, like Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks at NXT TAKEOVER Revolution. These women gave it all they got, and to think that they are just starting out. Or even Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair at Hell in a Cell 2018. Becky Lynch deserved that title more than anyone in the SmackDown Women's roster at that time. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description below, and I'll see you guys on my next video.